General Hospital spoilers reveals that Sunny's story in Port Charles seems to be nearing its end after decades of dominating the town. His new calculations about the future are making Sunny realize that there is nothing left to keep him here anymore. Relationships have fractured, allies have turned their backs. And even his business empire is no longer as solid as it once was. The battle with heart disease has forced Sunny to confront the truth that he is not invincible. And perhaps it's time to seek a different life, one not constantly threatened by enemies and law enforcement. The emergence of new, stronger, and more ambitious rivals has slowly pushed Sunny into a defensive position, one he has never had to face before. Sidwell, with international connections and modern business methods, is gradually taking over territories that once belonged to Sunny. Michael, Sunny's biological son, has become a formidable opponent, combining the Corinthos instinct with the Quartermain power. Even longtime allies, like the families of the Five Families, are beginning to question Sunny's leadership after recent events. Sunny's decision to leave Port Charles is not an impulsive moment but the result of long reflection on what has been lost and what remains. Carly, the woman who stood by him through thick and thin, now has her own life. Morgan is gone forever. Dante has his own career and family. Christina is on a self-destructive path. And Michael, the son Sunny raised and loved as his own, is now a version of himself, but perhaps even more dangerous and ruthless. One evening, while standing alone on the balcony of his penthouse apartment, looking out over Port Charles Harbor, Sunny made his final decision. He would leave, not to run away, not to surrender, but for a fresh start. Maybe to Puerto Rico, where he still has some assets and connections. Or perhaps to Europe, far from the reach of the FBI and his rivals. Wherever he goes, Sunny knows this is the time to write a new chapter in his life before Port Charles takes everything left of him. Sunny's departure is creating an unprecedented wave of change in the power structure of Port Charles, leaving a void that many are vying to fill. Sidwell is quickly expanding his operations into areas that once belonged to Sunny. Michael is quietly building his own empire, blending the legitimate activities of the Quartermains with the unorthodox methods he learned from his father. Even Julian Jerome, an old enemy, is considering making a return to take a slice of territory. These changes are not only affecting the underground world but Port Charles as a whole. Sunny's legitimate businesses, from restaurants and cafes to shipping companies, are now the target of power struggles. Those who once worked for Sunny now face a choice between new bosses or finding new jobs. Even law enforcement is adjusting its strategies in this new context, as their longtime number one enemy is no longer in the same position. Meanwhile, Jason Morgan is falling into an identity crisis he has never faced before. Now that the man who had guided his life for decades is gone. Without Sunny, Jason is like a ship without a compass, unsure of where to go or what to do next. His skills, loyalty, decisiveness, and the ability to execute orders, no longer have an object to serve. Initially, Sunny had suggested Jason come with him, to continue their decades-long partnership in a new location. But Jason refused. There was too much tying him to Port Charles, Danny, Jake, and other responsibilities he couldn't leave behind. This decision, although courageous, has placed Jason in a position he has never been in before, having to decide his own future. The real disaster for Jason is not losing a boss but losing a part of himself. He has spent so long living in Sunny's shadow that he no longer knows who he is without being the mob boss's right-hand man. For over 2 decades, every decision, every action of Jason's was guided by loyalty to Sunny. Now, having to make decisions on his own, Jason feels lost and uncertain, emotions he rarely experiences. Jason's budding relationship with Sasha becomes even more complicated in this context. Sasha, with all her own issues, needs a strong and decisive man by her side, the role Jason has always played. But now that Jason is beginning to doubt his own direction and purpose, can he be the support Sasha and her child need? Or is this relationship just a way for Jason to fill the void left by Sunny? New obsessions are starting to form in Jason's mind. Can he survive on his own? Can he build a life not defined by Sunny? Or will he fall into the spiral of aimlessness and eventually turn to a new mob boss to serve? Choices are now appearing before Jason, each with its own consequences. He could accept Sidwell's offer to work for him, a man seeking someone with Jason's skills and experience. But that would mean betraying everything he and Sunny had built. He could team up with Michael, who is quickly becoming a new power in Port Charles. But could Jason serve the son of the man he's been loyal to all his life? Or he could completely abandon this lifestyle and seek a different path, but after years in the underground world, could he even adapt to a normal life? Carly, who probably understands Jason even more than he understands himself, has noticed this change. She has tried to talk to him, reminding him that he's always been more than Sunny's right-hand man. But her advice seems to fall on deaf ears, as Jason becomes more and more withdrawn and introspective. Spinelli, one of Jason's few close friends, has also tried to help. He suggests that perhaps this is an opportunity for Jason to explore other aspects of himself, maybe take a legitimate job using his skills, or even focus on being a better father to his sons. But these suggestions seem too far-fetched for Jason, who has been accustomed to a life defined by loyalty and duty. Without Sunny to guide him, Jason's future seems more uncertain than ever. And this could be the biggest disaster he's ever faced. For a man who has been through so much, from the accident that caused him to lose his memory, to being kidnapped and tortured, to losing the people he loves, the loss of purpose might be the hardest challenge. As news of Sunny's departure spreads throughout Port Charles, many begin to wonder what Jason will do next. Some fear that without Sunny to keep him in check, Jason may become even more dangerous and unpredictable. Others hope that this could be an opportunity for him to find his own path. Perhaps one with less violence and danger. But one thing is clear to all, Jason Morgan is no longer Sunny Corinthos' enforcer, and that will forever change Port Charles. As the town adjusts to Sunny's absence and the uncertainty surrounding Jason's future, one thing becomes clear, a new era is beginning in Port Charles. New forces are rising. New alliances are being formed, and new stories are being written. And in all these changes, the biggest question remains, can Jason Morgan find his own way? Or will he forever be defined by his relationship with the man who abandoned him? Jason is undergoing a profound identity crisis as Sunny decides to leave Port Charles. Without the man who had guided his life for over 2 decades, Jason feels like a ship lost without a compass, drifting aimlessly on the sea of uncertainty. His cold blue eyes often reflect a sense of distraction, searching for a new anchor in a world that has completely changed. Every decision he made in the past was based on the question, what does Sunny want? But now Jason faces a much harder question, what do I want? New calculations are unfolding in Jason's mind as he tries to realign his entire life. From managing his relationships with Danny and Jake to deciding on his career path, every aspect of Jason's life needs to be reevaluated. He is now forced to make decisions that were previously supported by Sunny, and this places him in uncomfortable and unprecedented situations. Every time the phone rings, Jason instinctively thinks it's Sunny with a new task, only to realize that that life is over. While Jason struggles with his new direction, a major upheaval is taking place in the Port Charles Police Department. Anna Devane, with all the experience and respect she has earned over the years, suddenly faces the threat of losing her position as police commissioner. Political forces are maneuvering behind the scenes. Citing recent failures to apprehend major criminals and accusations about her too close relationships with certain figures from the underworld, Anna, a woman who has dedicated her life to justice, now faces the prospect of being pushed out of the system she has loyally served. One evening, as Jason sits alone at the floating rib, he notices Anna walking in with a rare, downcast demeanor. A brief conversation leads to a deeper discussion about their situations. Anna, disillusioned with the system she has served, and Jason, feeling lost after Sunny's departure. These two seemingly opposing people unexpectedly find common ground in their shared dissatisfaction with the status quo and their desire to create change. From this chance encounter, an idea begins to take shape. If Anna were to lose her position as police commissioner, would she be willing to use her skills and knowledge in a different way? And could Jason, with his network of information and access to the criminal underworld, be the ideal partner in investigating cases that the police either couldn't or wouldn't solve? The idea of a former WSB agent and a former mob enforcer teaming up creates a partnership full of contradictions, but potential. Anna, with her deep knowledge of investigative procedures and analytical skills, combined with Jason's ability to access sources the police would never have access to, and his willingness to cross boundaries that Anna, with her badge, would never cross. Both have complex pasts, have seen the darker sides of life, and are driven by a strong desire to do what's right, even if in very different ways. As Anna is actually dismissed, Jason's offer to collaborate becomes an appealing option. No longer bound by the limits of the law, Anna finds herself able to pursue justice in ways she could not before. Jason, meanwhile, finds a new purpose, not serving the interests of one person like Sunny, but working toward a larger concept of justice, under the guidance of someone he gradually learns to respect. Their relationship starts cautiously. Anna, though no longer police commissioner, still holds strong moral principles and often struggles to accept Jason's methods. Jason, used to following orders, sometimes feels frustrated by the need to explain and justify his decisions. But through each case they solve together, their mutual respect grows. This strange partnership quickly becomes the subject of rumors and speculation in Port Charles. Carly, who deeply cares for Jason, can't understand why he would choose to work with someone who was once Sunny's enemy. Spinelli fears that Anna will exploit Jason to gain information about the underworld. And Robert Scorpio can't believe that Anna, a symbol of the law, would collaborate with a known criminal. However, despite the skepticism, the new investigative duo begins to prove effective. Their first case involves the disappearance of a young student, a case that the police had given up on due to lack of evidence. Jason, with his access to the darker corners of Port Charles, and Anna, with her sharp investigative skills, work together to uncover the truth and find the girl safe. This early success leads to more cases, each reinforcing their partnership. Anna begins to realize that Jason is not just an unfeeling enforcer as she once thought, but a man with his own code of ethics, though very different from hers. Jason, in turn, begins to see Anna as a leader he can respect, not because of her power or influence like Sunny, but because of her unwavering commitment to justice. But this collaboration also brings new moral dilemmas for Jason. For the first time in his life, he faces the ethical side of his actions. With Sunny, everything had always been clear. Sunny gave the orders, and Jason followed them. But with Anna, every decision is considered, every action weighed for its moral implications. This is an entirely new approach for Jason, who had been used to simplifying everything into black and white. As they face increasingly complex and dangerous cases, Jason begins to question whether he can truly change after all those years as Sunny's enforcer. Can he become a better man, one his sons could be proud of? Or will he always be defined by his violent past? These questions, ones he never had to confront while working for Sunny, now haunt him every day. Anna, with all her life experience, recognizes this internal struggle in Jason. She's seen many people go through similar transformations, from Robert to Luke Spencer, and even herself. She understands that the path to redemption is never a straight line, and that everyone must find it in their own way. As their partnership deepens, a more profound bond begins to form between Jason and Anna, not romantic love, but a deep friendship and mutual respect. They become allies in a world full of enemies. A source of support for each other in difficult times, and an inspiration to become better versions of themselves. For Jason, Anna becomes the first person outside of Sunny and Carly who truly understands him, not as a weapon or a tool, but as a person with hopes, fears, and aspirations. And for Anna, Jason becomes a reliable companion during a difficult transition in her life, someone who stands by her when others have turned their backs. As news of their partnership spreads throughout Port Charles, more and more people begin to see them in a new light. Jason is no longer just Sunny's enforcer. And Anna is no longer just the hardline police commissioner. They become symbols of a new type of justice, one not bound by badges or loyalty, but driven by a shared desire to do what's right, no matter the cost. And through this process, both Jason and Anna find what they had lost. Jason finds a new purpose that has nothing to do with Sunny. And Anna finds a new way to serve justice without being constrained by the limits of the system. Together, they create a new force in Port Charles, one that doesn't fully adhere to the law, but isn't fully outside of it either, a force of their own, built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to a higher concept of justice. Sunny, after more than 3 decades of reigning over the Port Charles underworld, made a shocking decision when he announced his retirement plans. The news spread like wildfire through the town, sparking waves of speculation about who would step into the shoes of the legendary mob boss. Naturally, all eyes turned to Jason, the man who had stood at Sunny's right hand for nearly 2 decades, executing every command with unwavering loyalty and cold efficiency. To many, this was the obvious passing of the torch. Jason was trained, respected, and ready. Though he had never sought power for himself, Jason began to realize, if not him, then who would take control of Sunny's empire? With encouragement from Sunny and support from Carly, Jason gradually prepared himself for his new role. However, an unexpected variable emerged when Jason began forming a connection with Anna, former police commissioner and agent. After losing her position as commissioner, Anna had found new purpose by collaborating with Jason on several investigations. At first, their relationship was strictly professional. Anna's deep knowledge of investigative procedures paired with Jason's access to the underworld made them a surprisingly effective investigative duo. As they spent more time together, facing danger and sharing rare moments of vulnerability, an undeniable bond began to form. Jason found in Anna someone who could understand parts of him that even those closest to him could not. And Anna found in Jason a rare steadiness and honesty. When Jason officially took over Sunny's role, with Anna as an unofficial but influential advisor, Port Charles began to witness a shift in the town's power structure. Under Anna's subtle guidance, Jason began redirecting parts of the organization into legitimate businesses. The business landscape was restructured to reduce violence and focus on profitability. Street violence diminished as Jason adopted a more strategic approach to conflict resolution. An internal struggle began to form in Jason's mind as he tried to balance Sunny's legacy with Anna's influence. He questioned whether he was betraying the man who had given him purpose, or if he was evolving into a leader with his own unique style. Anna, too, wrestled with her own dilemmas as she realized she was helping shape an organization that was, technically, still outside the law. Not everyone welcomed the transformation. Some longtime members of Sunny's organization felt sidelined by Jason's new approach and began to voice their dissatisfaction. Rival families started testing boundaries to gauge Jason's toughness. These challenges forced Jason to assert himself in ways he had never anticipated. For the first time, he wasn't just executing decisions, he was making them. He wasn't just carrying out plans, he was creating them. In moments of doubt, Anna became Jason's anchor, providing him with the guidance and support he needed. As their relationship continued to evolve, Jason and Anna became a new kind of power couple in Port Charles, not entirely within the law, but not completely outside of it either, blending Jason's underworld knowledge with Anna's systemic insight to create a new balance of power. From his place of retirement, Sunny watched this transformation with complex emotions. On one hand, he was proud of the man Jason had become and the organization he was building. On the other hand, he couldn't help but feel a touch of envy, seeing Jason achieve something he never fully managed himself, a kind of balance between the criminal underworld and the legitimate world. As Jason and Anna continued reshaping Port Charles's power map, one thing became clear: a new era had begun. The era of Sunny had ended. And the era of Jason, with Anna at his side, had opened a new chapter for General Hospital. Jason now faces unprecedented challenges as he steps into Sunny's position in the Port Charles underworld. The weight of newfound power, responsibility for hundreds who depend on him, and the pressure to maintain order in a chaotic world now rest on his shoulders. but in his darkest moments. Jason does not stand alone. He is surrounded by 3 strong women, each offering a unique and essential form of support. Carly, with her long history with Jason, offers unwavering loyalty. She understands him in a way few others can, seeing the fears he never speaks and sensing the worries he buries deep within. When Jason doubts his ability to lead, Carly is the one who reminds him of his strength and his uncanny ability to adapt. She becomes his unofficial advisor, his confidant, and sometimes the force that pushes him forward when he needs it most. Anna offers Jason an entirely different perspective, that of someone who has led and knows the burden of power. With her extensive experience in both law enforcement and covert operations, Anna helps Jason navigate the uncharted waters of his new role. She teaches him strategy, how to read people, and the art of compromise when necessary. Their relationship, which began with mutual skepticism, gradually develops into a powerful alliance built on deep respect. Sasha, with her sincerity and outsider's perspective, gives Jason something he rarely finds in his world, a safe space to simply be himself. Not a hitman, not a mob boss, just Jason. Her presence in his life is a reminder that there's still a world outside his work, a world where he can find rare moments of peace. Sasha doesn't try to change him or steer his decisions, but her unconditional acceptance becomes a quiet source of strength he didn't know he needed. The shift in Jason's storyline reveals a depth of character development previously unseen. From a man used to taking orders and executing them without question, Jason is now learning to weigh multiple opinions, listen to different perspectives, and ultimately make decisions for himself. He is no longer just Sonny's right hand, he is becoming a leader in his own right, shaped not only by Sonny's legacy but also by the influence of the women in his life. This transformation brings forth a more complex and multidimensional Jason than ever before. His internal monologues no longer center solely on loyalty to Sonny, but now explore questions of morality, power balance, and even the nature of love and connection. Jason is learning to open himself up to those around him, not just relying on his own strength, but wisely drawing on the power of the support network he has built. As Jason continues to grow in his new role, with the support of Carly, Anna, and Sasha, audiences are witnessing the emergence of a character few could have predicted, a Jason Morgan no longer defined by his relationship with Sonny, but by the intricate web of relationships he has formed and the choices he now makes on his own. This marks a remarkable evolution from the character's traditional storyline, opening up a wealth of exciting possibilities for his future on General Hospital.